When I was 15, fresh out of middle school and starting my first job, my mom insisted I open a bank account at her credit union. The plan was simple: save up for driving school, then eventually a car of my own. She told me it was time to start being responsible with my money, so I agreed without thinking twice. Little did I know, this would be the start of a nightmare that would haunt me for years to come. I handed over my paychecks to her, trusting her with the deposits, believing she was just helping me manage my money. I was young, naive, and completely unaware of what was really going on behind the scenes. She always made it seem like she was looking out for me, telling me not to worry about the details. She'd say, "Leave it to me. I'll take care of it for you." And I, being a teenager, didn't see anything wrong with it. But then, about a year later, something happened that would change everything. One afternoon, the mailman arrived with an envelope addressed to me from the credit union. I'd never received my own piece of mail before. This was my first real taste of adulthood. I eagerly ripped it open, expecting to see a statement detailing how my savings had grown. But instead, what I saw took the wind out of me. The account balance? Zero. It was like a punch to the gut. All that money I thought I had been saving? Gone. Every single paycheck I had handed over to my mom had vanished without a trace. I was too stunned to process it at first. How could this happen? Why hadn't I noticed sooner? Then, I realized the horrifying truth. She had been stealing from me the entire time, and on top of that, she had been intercepting all the mail, making sure I never saw the account statements. When I confronted her about the balance, she was evasive and cold. She wouldn't tell me where the money had gone or why she'd taken it. Her silence was worse than any answer she could have given. My trust in her was shattered, and I was left feeling like a fool. I had worked so hard for that money, but none of it mattered anymore. It was all gone. Desperation set in. I had no other choice but to find a way to make money quickly and try to make up for what she had taken from me. That's when I made the decision to start selling drugs. It felt like the only way out, the only way I could ever afford to live the life I had dreamed of. Getting my license and buying a car, just like everyone else. The weight of betrayal was so heavy that I could barely breathe. Finally, after months of hustling, I managed to save enough for driving school. I thought, maybe now things could start to get better. But of course, that was just the beginning of another cruel chapter. When I asked my mom for help learning how to drive, she looked at me like I was asking for something outrageous. She refused. Her excuse? She said she was afraid I'd steal her car. Steal her car? The same car I had never even been allowed to drive before? It made no sense. This bizarre accusation stung even more. I had never been in trouble, never even had detention at school, and yet she thought I would turn into some kind of criminal. The idea that she believed I would steal from her after everything she'd done to me was a twisted irony that I couldn't wrap my head around. Her refusal to help me drive felt like the final insult, the last thread in a broken relationship that I had tried so hard to hold together. I had learned the hard way that the person you trust the most can sometimes be the one who betrays you the deepest. My hopes of independence were crushed under the weight of her lies, and I had no choice but to find my own way. A path that would forever be shaped by the callous actions of the one person who was supposed to love and protect me. And to this day, I still don't know where that money went. But what I do know is that my relationship with my mother will never be the same. Update. Update. I wasn't expecting to write an update, but after reading some of your comments, I realized I might owe it to myself to share a little more about where things stand now. Honestly, I've been sitting on this for a long time, but I think it's time to get it off my chest. So, after that whole mess with my mom and the stolen money, I tried my best to move on. I mean, what else could I do? I started driving, but it wasn't the way I imagined it. I had to scrape by, get rides from friends, and sometimes even just walk places when things got tough. Selling drugs was a dark chapter I don't like to talk about, but I did what I had to do to survive. Eventually, I got myself out of that and into a steady job, one where I didn't feel like I had to rely on anyone else. But things with my mom, they didn't get better. They didn't get worse either, but they stayed cold. She never apologized for what she did, And I never got a straight answer about the money. Whenever I tried to bring it up, she'd deflect or get angry. It felt like she was trying to erase it from her mind, like it never even happened. Still, for a while, I held on to the hope that things could change, that she'd come around. I had this vision in my head that one day, after I'd accomplished enough on my own, maybe she'd be proud of me. Maybe she'd admit what she did was wrong. But that never came. Instead, I got a lot of gaslighting and guilt trips. She'd tell me I was ungrateful, that she'd done her best, and that I should stop holding on to the past. A few months ago, I got a call from her out of the blue. She was checking in. Which is weird because we don't really talk anymore unless she needs something. She asked if I was still angry about the money. Honestly, hearing her say that made me feel sick. It was like she was trying to make it my fault that I was upset about her stealing from me. But I kept my cool and told her I wasn't angry. I was just disappointed. She hung up on me after that. That was the last time I talked to her. I don't know if that's the closure I needed, but it's all I'm going to get. I'm not expecting an apology, and at this point, I don't think I want one. I've spent too much time trying to figure out why she did what she did, and now I'm focusing on just being better for myself. I'm building a life, even if it's been harder than I thought it would be. For anyone who commented on my last post about forgiveness, I get it. I really do. But right now, I don't think forgiveness is something I'm ready for, or even something that would make sense for me. Maybe one day it will, but that's not today. Right now, I'm just trying to move forward without looking back. Thanks to everyone who reached out. I really appreciated your support. It's crazy how much it helped just to know I'm not the only one who's had to go through something like this. I'll keep you updated if anything changes, but for now, that's where I'm at. Final update. I wasn't sure when or if I'd ever post a final update, but I think it's time. It's been a long road, and I've been processing everything in my own way. I don't know if this will be closure for me, but I've learned a lot in the years since all of this went down. After that last conversation with my mom where she hung up on me, I realized something important. I can't keep waiting for her to change. I had spent so much of my life wishing for some kind of acknowledgement, an apology, or even just an explanation. But I've come to understand that I can't keep putting my life on hold, hoping for something that may never come. For a while, I stayed angry. I felt robbed, not just of the money, but of my trust in her and the relationship I thought we had. And I won't lie, there were days when I still felt that pain, especially around the times when I hit milestones in my life, like getting my license, or when I finally bought my own car. I always had this nagging feeling that I should have shared those moments with her, that maybe she'd be proud of me. But I stopped looking for validation from her. It's been a few years now, and I've come a long way. I've built a life for myself, one that's not reliant on anyone else. I learned how to drive. I paid for driving school myself, no thanks to her, and I eventually bought my own car. I still don't have the family connection I wanted, but I've made peace with that. Here's the truth. I realized that I don't need her approval. I had to learn that I can't keep measuring my worth against someone who's never going to be the parent I wanted. I've had to grow up a lot faster than most people, but in a way, that was a blessing. I've learned to rely on myself, and I'm proud of that. There's been no reconciliation, no heartfelt talk where she admits what she did was wrong. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I've stopped holding on to the idea that we'll ever have the relationship I imagined. Sometimes people don't change, and sometimes you have to let go of the person you thought they'd be. I'm at a place now where I can say I'm finally free. I've forgiven her, but not for her. I've forgiven her because I need peace for myself. I don't hate her anymore. I don't love her in the way I once hoped to, but I've learned that my life doesn't have to be defined by her actions. It's my life now, and I get to decide what that looks like. I don't know what the future holds with her. Maybe one day we'll talk again, maybe we won't. But what I do know is that I'm no longer waiting for her to change or make things right. I've moved on, and I'm stronger for it. Thanks to everyone who supported me and shared their own stories. Your words made a difference when I felt like I had nowhere to turn. I'll carry that with me, always. This is it. The end of this chapter for me, and the beginning of whatever comes next. Take care, everyone.